Congressman Swalwell thought he could go toe-to-toe with Ben Shapiro. If you didn't hear, Ben Shapiro was at Capitol Hill today talking to them about censorship for conservatives and conservative media, and a Democrat from California decided to debate him on some random topics. As you can imagine, the Democrat got absolutely wrecked on gay marriage and immigration. Take a look.
Of 0 to 100%, how much do you support Project 2025?
I think, like President Trump, I haven't looked all that deeply at Project 2025, but it seems that Democrats on this committee, sort of like Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, if they say Project 2025 enough, their presidential candidate becomes alive again.
And so, well, let's just talk about pieces of it, and I guess you can tell me if you support it. You probably want less bureaucracy, right?
I do.
I want less bureaucracy. You want more efficiency?
I do.
I want more efficiency. You want taxpayer money spent wisely?
I do. Congrats on becoming a Republican.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents would be proud. Mass deportations, it calls for that. Do you support that part?
I support the deportation of any illegal immigrant who's in the United States who is not of benefit to the generalized American public.
So if they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States, they didn't come across with documents, should they be deported?
If they have not paid taxes and if their draw on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they are making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
How do we measure that?
The same way that the IRS measures my income every year. It seems like if the IRS can track down every aspect of every receipt that I've ever submitted, and
So
they can do so for hundreds of millions of other Americans, they can do that for illegal immigrants as well, except for the fact that no one knows how many are in the country thanks to this administration.
So you would be cool with creating a system where they could pay those taxes if they wanted to and then stay and work and put food on our table?
It depends on how long it would take for them to pay the taxes, and they would also have to go presumably to the back of the line, although I'm not sure why I'm testifying about immigration policy at this point.
How about banning the abortion pill? That's part of Project 2025. Do you support that part?
I think that that's a state-by-state issue on a personal level.
I'm just asking you.
Sure, I'm a fully pro-life person, which means that I'm not in favor of the distribution of the abortion pill.
Banning same-sex marriage, what about that part?
I am in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman, and I am perfectly fine with anyone having any sort of voluntary sexual arrangement they seek. That's a different thing from whether the government should attach benefits to that personal relationship.
But you think it's a sin to have same-sex marriage?
I mean, I'm confused. Are you asking me as a religious Jew what I think about biblically?
I'm just asking, is it a sin to be gay?
Is it a sin to be gay? I mean, how long do we have here? 2 minutes? I mean, if the basic idea is that sexual orientation is up for government regulation, I'm not in favor of the government regulating the private consenting sexual activity of adults. That is a different thing, once again, from whether the government ought to engage in actual benefits for particular sexual arrangements that adults make.
But again, just you to me, is it a sin or not?
From a religious Jewish perspective, orientation is not a sin, but activity is. That's also the same perspective of most major religions, so far as I'm aware.
Okay.
My favorite part of this clip is when Swalwell makes that Freudian slip towards the beginning, and he says that he wants to make things less efficient, because that's actually true. Everything he says where he's like, I agree with that, and Ben Shapiro says, congrats, you're a Republican. He says that because that is so clearly not what the Democrats want. Like, they do not want there to be less bureaucracy. That's one of the big reasons why they actually hate Project 2025, by the way, because it talks about gutting the bureaucracy, and they're terrified of that. The best thing that Ben does, though, in the exchange is that he turns the table on Swalwell in a really, really good way, because basically he's showing that what Swalwell's goal, essentially, is that he wants Ben Shapiro to look like the radical. And what Ben Shapiro does is he turns the tables on him, and he's basically showing them that gay marriage is the weird thing. Traditional marriage is not the weird thing. And when I say weird thing, I mean the thing that's like existed for 6,000 years, or if you're like me, I literally believe that it is eternal. So this idea that it's the weird thing that, traditional marriage would be accepted and would be lawful, and actually, that there would be benefits towards traditional couples because they rear children and actually create the next generation, that's somehow the weird thing, is absolutely ludicrous. And Ben does a really good job of just shoving that back at him and being like, no, you're kind of the radical one, since you're supporting something that no one believed in until 2000. And I think Ben articulates that really well. Also, if you have to remember that this hearing is about censorship, which this question has nothing to do with. These questions have nothing to do with them. So again, Swalwell, you have to ask yourself, why is Swalwell doing this? Why is he asking Ben Shapiro, who owns a conservative media company, about gay marriage? And the reason why is because his whole goal is that he's trying to show people that Ben Shapiro is super radical. And his whole goal, again, he says at the beginning, I think I cut this part out, but he says, I'm not going to censor you. But the only reason why he would grill Ben Shapiro like this is his goal is for people to believe that Ben is the radical one and that he should be censored, which is the huge irony of all of this. That's the only logical reason why he would have Ben Shapiro answer these questions. He's trying to show people that that Ben should be censored. This is what Democrats believe. They believe that all conservatives are huge radicals and that they deserve to be censored. It is certainly what Swalwell believes, there's no question. Because Ben and Jeremy Boring, by the way, the people who own the Daily Wire, they are largely the faces of conservative media. And so if he can prove that Ben Shapiro is somehow the radical, then he may also be able to prove that it should be censored. It shouldn't, of course. I don't believe liberal media should be censored either, especially like crazy progressive media. I think it should be out there because I think the more people see it, the more people see how loony it is. But Ben just shows Swalwell instead that he is the radical instead of it being Ben. So it's really fantastic. Also, Ben's opinion on immigration, so reasonable and palatable. This is something that Democrats cannot understand, and it's why when you look at the polling that people trust Republicans on immigration so much more than Democrats. The Republican base, what they believe about deportation and immigration, incredibly palatable. This idea that people who come here illegally should not be able to skip the line, that there are other immigrants that we actually want here, and that they can't come. It's actually more pro-immigrant to not allow illegal immigrants because you are allowing people who are actually going through the process to still become immigrants, which, by the way, we bring in more than 1 million legal immigrants into the United States every year. That's something Democrats will never talk about. If they wanted to increase that number by 100,000, 200,000, I don't even think Republicans would deny that. But they don't talk about that because they don't want legal immigrants. They want illegal immigrants so they can vote in their elections and do other things. But he's literally saying that he wants people deported if they're not, if they're criminals, or if they're just not really providing a good service, a good, productivity and the good of America. It's an incredibly non-radical position to take. Swalwell realizes that. You can see his kind of gears turning. He's realizing this is going his way during the debate. So not only did Swalwell look stupid, but he actually looked incredibly radical, which Democrats are in this election. I've said this time and time again, but if you look at Trump's policies, you look at the things he's talked about, he is the moderate one. He is far closer to Bill Clinton in the 90s in terms of policy than Joe Biden is, by far. It's not even close. And Democrats are really scared of that. So for that reason, they have to turn the tables. It didn't work in this. It just didn't work. It didn't stop at gay marriage, however. Ben Shapiro debated Democrat Congressman Swalwell on a host of topics. And you could see the moment Swalwell regrets it. Take a look at the end half of this debate.
And how about cutting Social Security? Do you support that part of 2025?
I'm not sure what Project 2025's position on Social Security is. I'm in favor of the restructuring of Social Security along the lines of privatization and lowering and increasing the retirement age, because you, as well as every other congressperson, knows Social Security is going to go bankrupt, and yet everyone seems to have an interest in lying about it for the next decade and a half until we have to take austerity measures or radically increase inflation or taxes.
And bans against books about slavery. Do you support that part about?
Why would I possibly be in favor of bans about books about slavery? That would be absolutely ridiculous. What I am in favor of is the idea that school libraries should be able to make decisions along the lines of what exactly is appropriate for, say, a 7th grader and whether they ought to be treated to cartoons and genderqueer. That's not quite the same thing.
And just because we found some receipts, you did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew, that's true.
I'm sure there's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Orientation. But the view of all religious people I know has always been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. And you said, I may have a desire to sleep with many women, but I do not.
I agree with me. Yes, that's true.
Congratulations on your, I'm sure it's very hard to restrain yourself. Mr. Chairman, I just want to shift to Alvin Bragg. He was supposed to be here this week, and he's not coming. And Hunter Biden was supposed to testify. Now he's not testifying. We were supposed to have votes on articles of impeachment, and we didn't. And again, we're just wondering, you guys write great press releases, but the payoff seems to never come. And
so this exchange is a case study for how progressives and conservatives interact nowadays. You hear a progressive, this is how it goes. A progressive throws an attack at a conservative, and it's a straw man. That's all Swalwell did in this. He went at Ben Shapiro and he said something that Ben Shapiro doesn't believe. And then it's like, as a conservative, you can't even argue because they just said something that you don't even believe or something that didn't even happen. And Project 2025 is a great example. This is kind of what Ben Shapiro was talking about in a lot of this debate. They come at you and they say, wow, like, look at all this stuff Trump is planning to do. And it's like, how do I even argue about that? What you just said to me is a lie. The premise of the question is wrong. Trump didn't plan Project 2025 or ever accept it. Again, that's just one example. In this case, they will say, old people, they're like, why do you believe that old people shouldn't have a retirement? It's like, when did I say that? That is a complete straw man. And then Ben Shapiro can come back with facts and logic and make Swalwell look completely stupid. And so, you look at the math, you can show that it's going to bankrupt the country, so it doesn't work. So it's not that you don't want old people to have retirement. It's that you've just completely changed my argument, and we have to do something about it. And as Ben Shapiro accurately points out, Swalwell doesn't actually want to fix the problem. They're not real people. They don't actually solve problems. They're just politicians. This guy wanted to debate Ben Shapiro for his highlight reel, which is crazy, by the way, because this is freaking Ben Shapiro we're talking about. Like, it's no secret, I agree with Ben Shapiro on a lot of things, but there are a few things that I disagree with him on, especially with foreign policy, and I would never debate him in front of Congress. Personally, I would love to debate him. It would be really fun. I think it would be awesome. But in front of Congress, as someone who, if I were ever trying to run for office, which, by the way, I'll never do, so don't clip that. Don't turn that on me, but I'm never going to run for Congress. But if I was, and I was in Congress, and I was needing to win an election, it would be the dumbest thing to debate Ben Shapiro and think you're going to get away with it. So it shows, he's literally one of the best political debaters of the century. There's no question. So it just shows that the whooping that this congressman got was equal to the pride that he tried to do. And let's just say, thank goodness that Ben Shapiro didn't let him get away with it. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Please go down below, comment, like, and subscribe, and watch another video.